Welcome to the Monster Castle Radio Show. For the extreme paranormal listener. And here is your host, the Wolfman, Mike.
Right. Ow.
All right, and this is the Wolfman Mike, and we're on live. Monster Castle Interactive Radio, and the whole gang's here. Apocalypse, Darren, everybody. All right. Jewish producer.
Hello.
How you guys doing, man?
Good.
We have an amazing guest tonight.
Who is it?
Charles Michael Beaver. He's been a stuntman. I think he was trained by Chuck Norris, if I'm not mistaken. And the movie industry, he had an amazing life, all kinds of different things. He ended up doing hypnotherapy with UFO abductees. He's had all kinds of strange things happen to him all his life. Just found out about all kinds of... he's been on a few radio shows, and that's how I heard about him. So, everybody. Charles, are you there?
I'm here.
All right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.
Do you like to be...
I prefer to be called Mike, but that,
Okay,
you can call me
right.
Shirley as long as you pay me.
All right, that's right. Mike, okay. And I'm Wolfman Mike, so...
Okay, well, that'd be real confusing.
You can call me Wolfman, and I'll call you Mike.
Okay, cool.
That's a deal. All right. So, you've had quite a crazy life, I've heard.
Yeah, that's...
Kind of reminds me of myself, man. Wow.
I'm kind of a miracle. I ask people, have you ever seen a miracle? And they say, well, maybe. And I say, well, you're talking to one. And I'd start into this story about how I should have died on a particular day. And we don't really need to go into that because that would just take up time. And I'm not here.
Oh, come on. Oh, come on. You cannot bring that up and not talk about it. What happened? How old were you?
I was 18-ish, and I was riding my Honda Sabre 750, one of the three Sabre 750s I totaled all in the same year. And I was going down to Freeport from Houston, and I had a buddy of mine who became one of my three best friends who pulled up beside me on his Kawasaki 550 that had slicks on it and was ready for the racetrack with all the nuts all tied together with cabling and stuff. It was ready for the racetrack, and he did race it on the racetrack. And we raced all the way down there, and we got to the Freeport, got on the beach, and eight people finished off a keg, and that's a lot of beer for 8 people. Then we went up.
Keg or
it was a full keg. Full keg.
Oh my god!
So then we got up on the Levee Road and raced some more until my accident, and then I was in a coma for 3 days, but basically he was ahead of me, and we were the street is like 30 to 50 to 60 foot off the ground, right? And at the end of the first straight, you have an Indy style turn that's just like the ones at the Indy racetrack, right? So we're going through this turn at like 80 miles an hour, right? And he's ahead of me because he's got a smaller bike and he can lean it over further. And he gets so low that his case guard starts scraping on the ground, and his back tire lifts off the ground, and his bike just starts spinning. And fortunately for him, he had full set of leathers on, which I did not have on. But when my bike, what happened was you go 3/4 of the way through the turn, and it decreases radically inward. And we didn't know that because neither one of us had been on the track before or on this street before. So my bike flipped.
What year was this?
Well, 70? take 18 and subtract it from 58. That gives you 18 from 58 is 40. So subtract 40 from 2020. That would be
1980.
1980. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I figured right around there.
So my bike flipped up to where it was driving. When I was leaning over, the tires were up way above my head. But when the radius decreased inward radically, the bike flipped up to where it was perpendicular to the road. And so it started drifting slowly up towards the edge. And I'm leaning over trying to drag it back down, right? And so I get right up literally on the edge itself. I'm driving perfectly on the edge, and then my consciousness stops. It's like somebody cut the cord and I'm no longer there, right? So I don't remember going off. I just remember where I'm on the edge and then it goes black, right? Okay, so
what do you think happened?
I know what happened. Okay, so what happened was when the cops got there, they measured from the point, they found the point where I went off the road, right? And they measured from there to where the bike hit the ground on its tank. It was totally upside down when it hit the ground, right? And they measured that distance, and then the guy started doing his math, and somebody must have trained the guy. He's probably better at math than me. I couldn't have done the math, and for a cop to do that is like blows my mind because I didn't think cops were that smart. But I'm not saying they're dumb or anything, but that's still pretty smart. He calculated the distance, he did the math, and he said he has to be going 75 or to 85. So I'll write him a ticket for 80 miles an hour. I'm dying, right? I'm unconscious, and he's writing me a ticket, right? So, to punish me for speeding. Well, I'm dying, right? And so what happened was I woke up, right? And he woke me up, and I'm seeing clouds. All I can see is gray, right? And I see this big black object like a bear coming at me from in front of me. And I'm pushing it away. Of course, that's the cop. So, and of course, I don't know it's a cop. I can't see the real world properly. And so I was unconscious for 3 days in a coma, and I woke up 3 days later, and I'm back. But my top of my head I had no helmet on. The top of my head was like turned soft like a baby's head. It was very, very soft. And I should have by all rights died. But anyway, so let me move on.
Did you ever go after that cop though and try to beat him up?
No, I never did that. I had a cop. I'm joking. Listen to this.
Wait, your head was soft. Was it crushed? Is that what's going on?
What a jerk, that police officer, I gotta say. What a jerk.
Yeah.
Well, I never paid that ticket, right? Fortunately, the statute of limitations went bye-bye with that. But I had a cop try to kill me one time, and I had a cop save my life. So I've had all kinds of weird things go on with cops. I've been in jail many times. So anyway,
oh my God,
we could show just don't. We could do a show.
Plenty of time. You cannot throw these out here and not expect us to ask you questions about him. What cop tried to kill you?
This is your life.
Well, I was coming home from wherever, and I was going outbound on Memorial Drive one night, I'm getting confused. Okay, so actually I was going inbound, during the day. Sorry. I get too many experiences. I was going inbound on Memorial Drive one day towards town, and it was in the middle of the day, and I'd run from cops several times, and I'd get away because, you're faster than cops can't keep up with a good bike, But so anyway, I got away twice, and one of those times, the third time, which I didn't get away, I didn't get away because I didn't run. I wasn't really running. I was just not stopping. Okay, so I never sped up to run away. I just wouldn't stop. So we're in heavy traffic, and the traffic is like dead stop, right, on both sides of Memorial Drive, right? And it's like you're going down I was going down the middle line, and there was cars dead stop in traffic on both sides. And there's a cop chasing me behind me, right? And he's going up the middle in a car. And he's expecting everybody to get out of his way. He's not slowing down, right? And they're dead stop. And it's like, how do you go up the middle in a car with traffic on a one lane each way road, and the cars are dead stop? How do they get out of the way and the cop won't slow down? So he got up right on my rear. He was literally 1 inch from my bumper. And I looked back and I saw how close he was. And then he hit the gas at that point. So I was like, he didn't want me to stop. He wants to run me over. And so, he did.
He ran you over?
Well, he succeeded in knocking me down. And so I'm sliding forward, right? I'm in the oncoming lane, and there's actually a cop coming at me from the other direction, right?
Holy shit.
And I'm sliding on the pavement, and I see myself go under the car with the bike. And then all of a sudden it stops. It's like, I don't know if the alien saved me or what, but by all rights, I should have been run over right then by the oncoming cop coming the other way. And I don't know why that didn't happen, because I went like I was coming. It was like right there. And so I don't know how that.
So the first incident where you should have died, did you actually spend time in the hospital, or did you?
I was in the hospital for a coma for 3 days. I was in a coma for 3 days. Yes.
So, how did that affect your life?
It didn't. It was just. It was just
one
another
of the things
event.
that happened.
one more day in the life. One more day in the life of an extremely stupid guy. You know.
How old were you when you first started getting into UFOs and states of consciousness and everything else?
Well, wait a minute. Did Chuck Norris teach you to drive like that?
Oh, yeah. How'd you meet Chuck Norris?
Actually, I learned how to stunt drive from a guy who learned from a very famous French stunt driver. And the guy who taught me learned from him, and he taught me. And he actually wanted me to do a particular, we were doing 180s and 360, 90. We're doing 90s and 360s in cop cars, real cop cars, and on the street, actual street. And he had me do a certain technique, a certain trick. I don't remember if it was a 90 or 360 or what it was, but I did it perfect the first time, and he did it, and he couldn't do it. It was funny because this is the guy who was teaching me, right? Anyway, he blackballed me, so I won't go there. So anyway, Chuck Norris didn't teach me. He taught his best friend, and his best friend taught me. That's what happened.
Well, that's.
So I was taught.
You met Chuck Norris? Ever?
I've met him a number of times. In fact, he should know me, but he doesn't, because the reason why he doesn't know me is because, well, let's just say I had a big ego at one time, and I was trying to get my instructor to let me, after he and his brother and my instructor tested me for my black belt in 81, I got the notion, which was really stupid, but I got this notion that I should be able to work out in my instructor's dojo for free after that. For some reason, I just got that in my head, and it's like a really stupid thing to even.
You were an important person in your own mind.
Oh yeah, I became an important person, right? And so, when he wouldn't let me work out for free, I just left, and I was like pissed, and I was like, "This is another accident, right?" Okay, so I took off on the motorcycle. This is another one of the Virago 750s that I totaled in 1 year. So I took off from his dojo and took a left out of the parking lot and took the first. It's like right near a corner. So I took that next corner at a pretty decent clip, and 40 or above. Jammed on the brakes, leaned it over, and gassed it. coming around the corner, and there's like a McDonald's right there, right? And so I've already committed myself to like I'm out of here. And this lady is coming out of the McDonald's, and she pauses as she's going down the exit from the McDonald's onto the street. She pauses, looks over, does not see me. I'm like right in front of her, but she can't see me, right? And then she pulls out right in front of me. And when she gets her front end, like literally right in front of me, I hit the side of it at 45 or 50 because I reach out to pull on my brake and my clutch at the same time. And I don't get my hand around the brake before I hit her. And I put round ball imprints on the back of my gas tank. And then my body, my knees hit the side of her car, wrapped around my tank. And then my body flips up, and I'm upside down with my butt up in the air and my head straight down with a helmet on this time. And I bounce on the top of her hood and then go move. I'm still moving forward, and I bounce all the way across the top of her hood, and then I go on the other side and bounce on the pavement on the top of my head. And in that case, all I needed was knee surgery. I had it caused a hairline fracture on one of my kneecaps, and then there was a cyst that grew over that kneecap, and when I would bend my knee, it would hurt. So they had to go in and cut the cyst out, but otherwise it's healed. So that was another prerogative.
You never know where the show will go. We thought we were going to talk about UFOs. We just start talking about motorcycle crashes.
Whereabouts did you grow up, sir?
I was born in Orange, Texas, the center of the most redneck area in the whole country.
Wow.
East Texas.
I think that's where Willie's from.
Redneck Central. Remember where do you remember where the black guy was pulled behind the truck that time, like 20, 30 years ago?
I heard about that.
Yeah, that was in a town that's very, very close to my hometown. Yep.
When you were a young man, you were kind of full of yourself, and you lived on the edge. What changed?
Yeah, completely full of myself. Well, everything changed. I matured. I'm still a little bit immature, but I think everybody is if their inner child is still alive. But if you've killed your inner child, then you're in trouble. But
what was your first paranormal encounter?
Oh God, that was probably around the age of 16. Okay, I'll give you one of them because we could fill your whole show with just paranormal encounters, but literally. But the first one that I can think of I have two different ones I'm thinking of. So there was a time when I would go into the restroom and I would be urinating, and I was unemployed quite a bit, right? So I'd have all the shades closed in my apartment, and so it would be fairly dark, but there would be a lot of light coming in around the shades, right? So it wasn't that dark, but it was, a little dark. So I'd go into the restroom and I'd go to urinate on the throne, standing there, and I would look up in the mirror and I'd see some type of disincarnate spirit. I don't know, to this day I don't know what it was, and it was like the size of a person, but it had no form. It was just like morphing and moving. It was stationary, but it was within itself. It was like moving around, sort of morphing thing. It's hard to describe. It was almost like smoke. It was actually not as dense as smoke, smoke that you could barely see.
I've seen something like that.
You weren't on any drugs, were you?
Probably not. I mean, I could have been, but I mean, I smoked pot until from the age of 16 to the age of 34 for 18 years, I stayed high morning, noon, and night for 18 years. That's how I got my attaching spirits, from smoking pot. So
I've seen things like that before. I know what you mean. I call it ectoplasm. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't okay. So ectoplasm is generally not visible to the human eye. You'll take, like, I used to see these photos my parents would take at Christmas, and you'd see ectoplasm in the room, but you can't see ectoplasm. It's like invisible most of the time.
Okay, but so that's different than that when it actually manifests and you see that kind of smoky, weird stuff like right in front of your eyes. And what is that? And what did you see?
Well, okay, so first of all, I was looking in the mirror, right? And I would turn around. I'm still urinating, right? So I turn around my upper body, twist my upper body, and I would look in the doorway, and I could see it directly. So I could see it in the mirror, and I could see it directly, right? And there was a time when my attaching spirit was in the process of attaching to me, and I would be laying on the bed, and this spirit would come upon my feet, and it would just stand there hovering, and I couldn't see it. I could feel it touching my feet, and I could feel it was like spinning. So I could feel like there's this phrase, you pay the whirlwind, something like that. I don't remember the exact phrase, but it was like a whirlwind. It was spinning, and you could feel the wind going in a circle around this thing. And I think that's one of my attaching spirits. I have an attaching spirit that sits in my...
That's in a Johnny Cash song, The Whirlwind. I think that's from something out of the Bible.
Yeah, he thought that was in the Bible, but it wasn't in the Bible at all.
Well, I have an attaching spirit that sits in my head, and I have one that sits in my back. So I have two of them, and the one on my back is rarely noticeable. The one on my head is always present, always noticeable. And so, like I said, I smoked in the morning. I stayed high morning, noon, and night from the age of 16 to the age of 34. Now, at the age of 34, I was laying on my bed, and the spirit came upon me. It covered my whole body. And intuitively, I knew this was a positive spirit. And I don't know how I knew that, but I did. And I can't say that about, all of them. But in this case, I somehow knew it was a positive spirit, right? And so I started feeling a pain in my neck. And I knew what was happening was it was showing me what I was doing to my body smoking pot. And so in my head, I heard, it was like I was talking to myself. I didn't hear any particular special voice. It was like I was speaking to myself. I heard myself say, or with my voice patterns, it said, "My first commandment to you is to stop smoking." And that was it. I heard nothing before that. I heard nothing after that. And then it left. And from that moment till today, I've never taken a puff of pot ever. So, that was my cure. I went from, you have the 12-step program. I took the first step, which was knowing I had a problem. I took the second step, which was doing something about it, moving towards a solution. I took the last step, which is connection with the larger reality. And so I went from step 2 to step 12 of this 12-step program and jumped past the others. So that's my cure of pot story. So anyway,
are you glad,
I guess I should.
Are you glad you quit?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you think
yeah.
it was
Okay, so what happened after you saw this thing when you were 16?
Oh, nothing happened.
Did you tell anybody,
No, and I kept seeing it. I saw it day in and day out. I saw it many days. It wasn't a one-time experience.
So where was it all the time? Was it in one spot? Or?
Yeah, that's the part. There was one on your head and one on your shoulders.
Hold on. It was in one. I would see it in one spot. It would follow me up to the restroom doorway, and it would hover in the doorway. Now that could have been the same spirit that was standing at the end of my feet that ended up standing in the moving up where it was standing halfway between my feet and my knees, and then eventually to where my knees were. And I don't know where it was standing after that, but it could have been that same spirit, and that could have been the one that's attached to my back or my head, either one. I don't know which is which. But
okay, I was trying to wrap my head around that, being attached to your back.
So there was another. Let me give you one more.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well,
I've never heard of
spirits that are just attached to you like that. What is an attached spirit?
Well, you've never heard of The Exorcist?
Yeah, I've heard of The Exorcist.
So basically, like possession.
Isn't it a possessed spirit?
So do you know the true story of The Exorcist?
No, just the movie.
Did you know it was based on a true story?
Yeah, but yes. I'm not quite clear on exactly. Was that Father Malachi Martin or?
No,
it wasn't. I didn't think so.
So the story is kind of vague because whenever you hear about it, they talk about different years, and it's kind of confusing. But around the year 1943 in St. Louis, I think it was St. Louis, Missouri, or maybe it wasn't, maybe it's somewhere else, but I think that's where it was. They found this kid, and it was like a college or something, and somebody I know today around me that I work with, I deal with a lot of people remotely on Skype, through Skype, and somebody I know actually lives near where that was, and he says they've still got that room blocked off. So anyway, where the kid was possessed originally, I think it was like a college or a dorm or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was there, like in St. Louis, Missouri, and then they moved him up to a Maryland suburb of D.C. and worked on him there. And they exercised him for like a year or over a year before it actually worked. And there's a book that was written by one of the exorcists. It's probably the best source of information. It is, I think it was called Possession. I think it's called Possession. It's a black book. I don't remember what the paper cover looks like, but it's just a black hardcover book written by one of the exorcists. And what happened was the exorcist one of the exorcists went to one of the not the Vatican, but the what religion is that? Catholic. One of the Catholic libraries, and I don't know if it was the Vatican or somewhere else, but he went to one of the Catholic libraries and found and searched around for text on exorcism, and he found something that said something about 1111. So in the New Age movement, you hear a lot of 1111. The symmetrical numbers come up, and I've had that experience in my life quite a bit, the symmetrical numbers. But anyway, this guy in this book he said something about 1111 was the key. So what he did was they had of the many exorcisms they had over a year or longer, the last one they had, the one that actually worked, was on November 11th, 11 p.m., 11 minutes after 11 p.m. on the 11th of November. So it's 11/11/11/11, right? And that's when it worked. That's in the book, and very few people know that. But that's written by one of the exorcists that actually worked it. Now the movie is complete fiction. It's the symptoms of two different people spliced together into one person, so it's more dramatic. So, but it's total fiction. It's a girl and should have been a guy. It was, it's just nothing close to the truth. But anyway, so let's go elsewhere.
We're up for a break here if you want. Have a break here?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, I'll take a break.
All right, we'll be right back, folks. This is Monster Castle Interactive Radio. This is Mad Mike. We're going to be back with Michael.
Sure.
Mike.
down cycle. And it's going to go on for another 427,000 years, according to these writings. The catastrophes are cyclical. So yes, there are civilizations that have been aware that their time is coming.
This is Igor from Monster Castle Interactive Radio Show, a sanctuary of free speech exploring the strange beauty of the universe and beyond. Fridays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Visit our website at monstercastleinteractiveradio.ca.
Let's go. We are back live. It is Monster Castle Interactive Radio. We're here with Michael Beaver. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
Mike?
How are you doing? Can you hear me?
Hear him.
Yeah. Oh, right. Groovy days. We were talking
Wolfman,
about
do you hear him?
Yes, we can hear him.
Okay.
Everything's good. Last thing we were talking about was okay, this says early paranormal.
The numerology
Okay,
and what the
that's right.
we're talking about the possession. JP had some questions.
Okay,
JP,
great.
I don't think he's back. I don't think he's back yet.
He's not back yet.
You said 5 minutes. We came back a little early. So what were you saying about the... Okay, this is what I'd like to ask. So are you saying that you were possessed when those spirits were on your head and shoulders? Or were they just
No,
there to
what
guide
I'm saying is I have attaching spirits. So, do you remember... you guys listened to Art Bell back in the day, right?
Oh
you?
yes.
Of course.
Okay,
I
do
used
you
to call
remember his... Do you remember his interviews with Malachi?
Yes.
Yes, all three.
Okay, so do you remember what what Malachi said about that? He said full possession is very rare, but obsession is very common.
Yes.
Okay, so all right, so I have 2 attaching spirits, and my belief is that most people have 2 or more attaching spirits. So,
Interesting.
and that I've seen. When I say my belief is, I don't mean I read a book that said that or saw a video. What I mean is I've had experiences which actually give credence to that belief, and we can go down that road if you like, because those are pretty weird experiences. So it's up to you guys. Where y'all want to go? How dark do y'all want to get?
Interesting.
We have someone in the drawbridge that wants to come in and chime in and ask a question.
Okay, that's fine. Ducky can come in. I recognize Ducky.
Are you ready for a question this early in the show?
Oh, sure. I'll answer anything.
All right, here comes. All right, Ducky.
If you have a question,
What did
Ducky.
you want to ask? You have to unmute.
Oh yeah. No, I just wanted to go back to the for a second.
Sure.
You smoked you smoked weed for a lot of years. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So for our guest.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hang on. I got a feedback loop going.
Well, maybe you have the show playing at the same time.
Okay. No,
Please turn down your device.
Please turn down your background device, sir.
Caller, please extinguish your listening device.
West of the Rockies, Ducky, you're on the air.
I am east of the Rockies.
Great.
We were just talking about Art Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bless his soul.
Yes, to our guest here. He was talking about how he smoked marijuana for a long time, and then he had some kind of weird realization that he shouldn't do that anymore.
Yes.
What happened?
Well, okay, so after you smoke pot long enough, if you stay high morning, noon, and night for 18 years like I did, at some point you get headaches. What happens is it decreases the pressure in your head, and then when you stop smoking, the pressure goes back to where it's above your normal pressure, and so you get headaches that last periods of time, and it causes you to be paranoid, and there's a lot of downside to it. So you just at some point you may have a desire to quit, and I just had a desire to quit. It wasn't a particular weird thing, but it caused me to have a desire to quit.
You never viewed marijuana from a medicinal side, then it was really just to get high all the time.
Yeah, from sun up to sundown. Yeah, I can imagine that's gonna take a toll. Yeah. All right. That's. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Good question. Do you want to hang out for a little bit, Ducky?
Oh yeah, I'm chilling. Yeah.
All right.
Ducky, all right, Ducky. Thank you. That was awesome.
That's a good question. JP had some questions about numerology.
We ended the first part of the show where you brought up the 1111, and I'm just curious. I hadn't had a chance to look at the site and to see what you have. You have so much great information on there. I'm just curious if you got into numerology or gematria, or I mean, do numbers play into a big? Are they a big factor, I guess, in how you see the world and what's happening in the world?
Not really. Hold on just one second.
I always like to ask.
I believe he's adjusting his attachments.
I had to take off my shirt. I was just getting a little too hot. So anyway, the number thing, I came to some understanding about numbers, but I'm not sure that they're as big a deal as you might think. But I did tell you about the exorcist thing where that number worked. But numbers, symmetrical numbers, my understanding that I came to with symmetrical numbers is that symmetry itself in general, it's not necessarily a number thing, but symmetry as a larger construct is about change. It facilitates change. Now, the 666, that's symmetrical on the dark side, right? And then 1111 could be symmetrical on the positive side. But symmetry in general is neither positive nor negative. It's just about change. And it could be either one, positive or negative, like anything else. There was a mafia guy who walked out of a restaurant in New York City, and he got gunned down at 4:44, and, there's all kinds of things that happen. One week, I was staying at my sister's house one week. I was just visiting for a week one time, and I noticed when I went to the symmetry thing was happening a lot for me at that time. And so when I went to bed every single night when I was staying there, it was a symmetrical time every single night. It was either 11:11. Almost every night it was 11:11, and then one night it was 1:11. The only night that it wasn't 11:11, it was 1:11. But it was a symmetrical moment when I laid my head down every single night for like a week. And, obviously some kind of change was going on in my life at that time. And symmetrical numbers, like all other symmetry, facilitates change. Like, for instance, like a diamond versus glass, right? Glass is amorphous. Well, a diamond is very symmetrical. And if it's like a ruby, so one of the guys that started with the first remote viewing program, I think the first book I ever read on it was called Mind Reach. That guy invented the ruby laser.
Was it?
No, this is long before him. This
Ingo
predates him.
Swan? Ingo Swan?
Ingo was the remote viewer, but I'm talking about the guys who ran the program that he started with. There's Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ. So they were the SRI guys that started one of the first remote viewing programs that we know about publicly.
Wow.
So anyway, they wrote a book called Mind Reach, and that was the first remote viewing book that came out publicly. So anyway, I don't remember if it was Russell Targ. I think it was Hal Puthoff that invented the ruby laser, and that laser goes through a ruby. Well, the ruby has symmetrical structure just like a diamond, and so symmetry in crystals facilitate light movement through that object. It's a way, having the structures being the same allows the light to go through much faster. So it's a facilitator of change, just like symmetrical numbers are a facilitator of change. So that's my understanding of numbers, of symmetrical numbers. And
Does that have to do with Tesla's work at all? How he said 3s, 6s, and 9s are the key numbers?
Well, I don't know about Tesla. I mean, he was an interesting character. So what all do you know about him? We can get into Tesla if that's what you want to go. Where you want to go?
Actually, I'm not sure. JP, do you know about the 3s, 6s, 9s? About what Tesla meant by that? Because I don't think anybody really knows. That's a mystery.
So I only know my birthday is 369, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not versed in that. But if you are, by all means, Mike, go ahead and
Actually,
well,
no.
I'm not. I don't know anything about the symmetrical number part, but I can tell you all kinds of things about Tesla you probably don't know.
Nice.
For instance, I'll give you an example. So, where are his trunks right now?
Government files. I'm not sure where the Ark of the Covenant is.
No, they're where he was born. They're where he was born in Serbia. Okay, so he had like 10 or 20. He had something between 10 and 25 trunks, and they recovered 8. I think 8 of them, or it could be 9 or 10. They've got them in Serbia in a museum, all open and where you can see parts of them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's another thing you probably don't know about him. There was a government person who was tasked with saying whether his research was valid or crap. Who was that research? The person the government tasked with determining whether his research was valid or not. Who was that?
Oh, geez, he was one of the president's ancestors. Bush, wasn't he?
I was going to guess the guy that had the other, not the alternating current, but the
you're talking about Edison. No,
Edison was born in my hometown here.
It was Donald Trump's uncle.
That's
what?
right. I knew it was one of the presidents related to one of the presidents.
No way.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Small world.
So, yeah, it's a small world. So, anyway, one of the
same
latest
families and people have their fingers in everything.
Yeah, they
It's
do.
unbelievable. It's unbelievable how much money is rolling through Washington now.
Well, I used to work there. I worked at the FBI, and I've worked for the CIA, and I've worked for the library. I've worked at the Library of Congress, and I've worked. These are all my customers, and I've worked in the same room that Petraeus got his 4-star briefing every morning. I worked in that room with live drone feed, and you had like 30 drone feeds right behind me on a board going through Raytheon servers. And
holy shit!
Did you get to hear that stuff?
General Petraeus.
Did he betray us?
There was no cute. There was no audio. It was just video. You'd see the drone. The drones were. There was like 4 drone feeds projected up on a wall, And in the middle of those 4 drone, and there's like 100-inch projections from a projector up and another level up on another floor above the one I was on. I couldn't see the projector, but there was probably 5 projectors up there. Anyway, because you had 5 projections on the wall, each about 100 to 150 inches apiece. And each of those are live drone feeds. And then in the middle, you had the application that I was supporting. So, which was showing live war on the battlefield.
You started off with you're a crazy redneck and you're getting in a bunch of motorcycle crashes, and all of a sudden you've worked for the CIA and the FBI.
Actually, I've never been a redneck. I lived in redneck town, but I've never been a redneck myself. But go ahead.
Where did you go to college? I guess we got to fill in your life a little bit here. Where'd you go to college? And
I went to a college you've never heard of. It was called the Video Technology Institute. And last time I did a search for that, like 10 or 15 years ago, the only reference to it anywhere in the world was my resume.
Wow. So that's what you were doing for the FBI and the CIA? You were doing like video stuff?
No. So my degree is in broadcast video production technology. Broadcast video production technology. That's 40 weeks of component level electronics and 20 weeks of broadcast video production. Now the actual video production training was in a sound studio or sound stage / studio, the same one that Dallas was shot at. The TV series Dallas, it was shot on the same sound stage that I was trained in as a videographer. So that's in Las Colinas, which is in between Dallas and Fort Worth. So
did you know who shot JR? Did you know who shot JR before we all did?
No, because this was long after that series ended.
Okay, I'm just messing with you. Go ahead, keep going.
So then, so over time, I've had over 60 contracts. So what I did for the FBI was JBoss, JBoss, and
what's JBoss?
JBoss is a application server, and you know what the FISA court is? They've been talking about the FISA court, and they got well, I supported the application that runs on. The FISA court is the FISA system is controlled by the FBI, and that's sitting on top of JBoss. So I supported the application that the FISA system, FISA management, it's called FISMS, Federal Information Systems Agency Management System, something like that. Anyway, FISM.
Interested that this is what got you the job, basically, by you having your knowledge in this area, and you were able to get work from this, I'm guessing.
No, not really. No. Okay, no. So the way I got computer jobs is back in the day, 41 years ago, over 41 years ago, 1974, I was working on a mainframe when the computer that you know of didn't exist. The only thing that existed in those days was the mainframe. Even the midframe didn't exist. All you had was the mainframe, right? So I was in like my first year of high school to, 9, 10, 11, 12, 9th grade. And they had a dumb terminal at my high school, Northbrook High School in Houston, Texas. And I was playing around with the mainframe, trying to learn basic programming. And then from there, you go through, if we talked about just the people I've worked for, we would be here for hours and hours. So I've had 60 different contracts. But the first company I ever worked for, Advanced Medical Automation Systems, for any length of time, that was a 1-year contract, it lasted 1 year. It wasn't a contract, it was a regular job. But it lasted 1 year, right? I'm standing in the hallway just outside the room I worked in, and there's one of my superiors is standing there, and he said, and there was a guy standing in the waiting room down the hallway. And he said, "You know who that guy is standing in the waiting room down there?" And I said, "No, I can't even see the guy. He's too far away." He said, "That's the future king of Saudi Arabia." I'm like, okay. This was the people who owned this company were friends with the Saudi family, so it was a Pakistani-owned company.
How long did you work
still
for the government agencies? And I imagine this is in the 80s.
How long have I worked for the government? That's a good question. You're
like a subcontractor, right?
Yeah, I've worked for. Hold on one second. I'll tell you. I don't even know. I've been a contractor. I've been a professional IT employee for over 28 years. Now, how much of that is government? I would have a hard time telling you unless I go looking at my resume.
So you get hired for jobs for a short term, I take it, since you've worked for so many different ones?
Well,
until you figure out
my bread and butter used to be 1 day jobs, 1 week, 2 day jobs, 3 day jobs, 1 week jobs. And then my bread and butter became 1 month, 2 month, and 3 month jobs. And then eventually got to 6 months and then a year. And then, it's kind of went up from there. I never became stable until recently. The job I've got on now is the most stable IT job I've ever had. And so
can I ask you a question about the FISA court?
You can ask me any question you want.
Is there just one court? How's that work? Because it's kind of secretive.
First of all, I don't
talk about it.
First of all, I don't know anything about the FISA court. All I know is about the FISA system that is used to manage when an entity of the government puts in a warrant, an agency puts in a warrant, then that's tracked on the FBI's FISA management system, which is sits on top of JBoss. But I don't know anything about the actual court itself. I can only tell you about the system that it runs on. So as far as working for the government goes, I think, let's see here. I'm looking at my expanded resume, and the very first time I ever worked for the government was in that was the military. That was the Army. So that was in 2003. So it's 2020. So 17 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So I've been working for the government for 17 years, but I don't work for the government now, and I haven't worked for the government for more than 3 years. So you take 17 and subtract at least 3 years, so that becomes 14, less than 14 years.
All right, JP, do you have another question? I'm going to back off here. I had to know about that.
No, I think it's leading somewhere. So you get the work. I forgot where you were in the timeline, though.
Yeah. Thinking about going to his website and the page that you asked me to look at here. And
you mean my book?
Yes, that's your this is the chapters of your book. Okay, so we're looking at. So I think we've already gone through. My strange friends introduced me to the life force called Chi.
No, you haven't even touched that.
Okay, so let's do that then.
Okay, so I used to know a guy who believes he's Christ, right? So the interesting part is not that he believes he's Christ. The interesting part is that his best friend also believes he's Christ. Of course, his best friend hung himself from a tree. And so anyway, I used to play chess. I used to play chess with the guy, right? We get high and we play chess. I met him at the pool one day, and we became friends, and we would get high and play chess, and he would beat me most of the time. But one time he took my queen, and I still beat him. So anyway, he was pretty good at chess, and he taught me how to play it. I couldn't play it worth squat these days. Anyway, we took acid one day. We went to went to the Science History and Science Museum in downtown, or not downtown Houston, but near, not too far from downtown Houston. We went to the museum. We took acid on the way there, and then when we got in the museum, his girlfriend started talking about death. And she says, she was trying to trip me out, right? She says, we're looking around at all these bones, of all these dinosaurs. And she says, isn't it amazing how long these things have been dead? She says it really, like real emphasis on the word dead, She was really trying to trip my head, She wasn't hot. She wasn't on acid. He and I were on acid, but she was straight, right? And so we're walking around the museum, and do you remember that Star Trek where this race of aliens gets on the ship and they kind of take over the ship, but nobody can see them, right? And all they can hear, what happens is they had this little, it's like a bee or
I remember that. They were in a different speed.
Oh, that's right, yeah. A different vibrational frequency.
And when you go to theirs, when you get to their speed, everybody else is just frozen, right? Okay, that's how it happened in this museum. So me, him, and his girlfriend, or his wife, the three of us were totally normal, but everybody else in the museum was frozen. Okay, they were just moving. They were actually moving. They weren't totally frozen, but they were moving very, very slowly, like almost like they were frozen. Okay, they were moving even just barely faster than the Star Trek episode.
That's good acid.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
I guess. So, and then at some point, she asked. I'm like, I'm wanting to get out of there, right? Because I'm kind of getting a little paranoid about this place, the museum being not such a good place to be. And she's, we both need to use the restroom, so we start going down the stairs to the bottom level, which is where the restroom's at. And it's getting weirder and weirder, right? And so when I get to the bottom of the stairs, she's ahead of me, and she's already in the restroom, and the doors on the restroom is open behind her, but I can't really see in the restroom because light coming from the restroom is so bright, it just totally blots out everything in the restroom. It's like from another dimension, bright, super bright coming out of the restroom. And the door shuts, and I'm like, I'm getting this, really bad feeling about everything. And I'm like, if I go in the restroom, I might not come out. And so, I'm like, I need to get out of here. I needed to use the restroom really bad, but I needed to get home even more. So, or I needed to get out of that building is what I needed to do. So I turned around immediately and just went up the stairs as fast as I could. And it's like, in the middle, it felt like I was in a dream, in slow motion going up those stairs. And I got up the stairs and I went straight out the door. And when I went out the door, when I went through the doorway, it was like I was going from one dimension to another. And when I got outside, it's like the regular world instead of being a weird place. And it's like I stepped through a portal. And then at that point, it gets even weirder.
Okay, keep going. Oh, we're at the top of the hour.
I was just going to interject. I had a similar experience.
Yeah, we are at the top of the hour, but
on acid.
Ducky, you want to hold off for just 1 sec, and we'll ask?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
okay,
we can have a short break here if you want, sir.
Yeah, let's have a short break.
All right. Entering the other dimension when we come in.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Cushion eject. Does the cassette mechanism make a terrible sound like this when you open it? Well, we got something better for you. We got Cushion Eject today. We could get some funny sounds like that when it pops out. It will be slow and smooth. Cushion Eject
is the best in ejection mechanisms for any tape cassette. And we can install cushion eject today. Use code KTEL. More cushion for the pushing, baby. Yeah. More cushion for the pushing with cushion eject. All right.
If my words did glow with the gold of sunshine, and my tunes were played on the harp strung, would you hear my voice come through the music? Would you hold it near as it were your own? It's a hand-me-down. The thoughts are broken. Perhaps they're better left unsung. I don't know. Don't really care. Let there be songs to fill the air. Rippled in still water, when there is no pebble tossed, nor wind to blow, reach out your hand. If your cup be empty, if your cup is full, may it be again, let it be known. There is a fountain that was not made by the hands of men. There is a road, no simple highway between the dawn and the dark of night. And if you go, no one may follow. That path is for your steps alone. Ripple in still water, when there is no pebble tossed, no wind to blow, you choose to lead, must follow. But if you fall alone. If you should stand, then who's to guide you? If I knew the way, I would take you home. La da da da, la da da da, la da da.
Yeah, it's it's still in the thing. And we're hot. We're back on the air. All right.
Oh, okay, so we just walked out of this. Okay, so we've just walked out of this building, right? And so, out of the science, history and science museum down, and you're tripping. Right? So I was tripping on acid. We just walked out of the building, and we're like 30, 40 foot from the building, and he's standing next to his wife. I think he was on the left side of his wife, and she was on his right, and they were facing the building. And I was looking at their back, and I'm facing the building also. They're halfway, or they're like 10, 20 foot from me, and he turns around and gives me this weird smile, evil type. I don't know if I'd call it evil or not, but it was a weird smile. And then he disappears. I mean, gone, right? And then he reappears on the other side of his wife and looks back at me again and gives me that same weird grin. And then he disappears again and then reappears back where he originally was and looks back at me again. Like, oh crap. And and then from there, the story is not terribly interesting. We go back to my apartment, and his wife puts her hand through a window, and I get him to leave with his wife, and he being that he thought he was Christ, he kind of took that a little too far, as far as me, wanting me to worship him, things like that. But him and his
oh wow, man.
him and his buddy
didn't jump.
Used, those things to do things. Yeah.
I had similar experiences. When I was in high school with some bunch of people, we did acid and we stuck our hands in physical objects like a rock and pulled them out, and we levitated and did weird things like produce electricity off of our hands and stuff. But anyway, the next part of your book is further interaction with the life force used in the laying on of hands.
Yeah, so I was into metaphysics. Okay, so Brant's buddy, the two people we were just talking about, the guy that thinks he's Christ, that was Brant, and his buddy, who also believed he was Christ, he showed me chi. Okay, that was the first time I came to, or you guys have experienced chi, right? Or no?
Oh, yes, I have anyways. I'm a martial artist as well.
Right, so have you done the internal martial arts, or what? How did you experience chi?
Okay, we did mega training, and it was like a 48-hour to 72-hour ordeal where we didn't stop training for a long period of time.
Which kind of art were you in?
Goju-ryu.
It's Japanese.
Yeah, Goju. But we take all different styles in and into our style. So we will incorporate anything that we learn from other styles and incorporate it into our style and adopt it.
Yeah, well, I was in a movie one time with an actual ninja, a real ninja. But anyway, so when Brant's buddy, his name...
Mushin, I don't know if you're familiar with Mushin.
No.
The state of no thought.
I'm not. Oh, you're talking about the gamma, 40 hertz gamma frequency. Yeah, that's the level. If you get to the 40 hertz above beta, there's the gamma. It's 40. It's at 40 hertz, and that's the no mind, the no thought state. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what that's what we try to achieve in Mushin, which is using, and then we could take our chi energy, and I also studied kung fu, so yeah, we would make energy balls in our hands and use that and throw them, and you could actually hit people without touching them.
Sounds pretty fun or interesting.
Yeah. That was Nick, by the way, that you heard. I don't know if you heard him. Say hi, Nick. Hi. Nick's a contributor to our show. He's got cerebral palsy. He can't really talk very well, but he's here now.
Cool.
I have to go back again. Sorry, you guys.
He listens to all these shows, so it's tickling him pink to be here. It's a big honor, actually, for all of us to talk to you, sir.
Mike.
Thank you.
Are there real ninjas now? Still?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there are still, yes.
Definitely. The samurai has a ton of mythology behind it as well.
Well, I used to have a real samurai.
Okay, so what do you mean by the chi?
They're very rare.
Ki and chi and force, the life force used in laying on of hands. So,
what I was going to tell you was Brant's buddy. He showed me how to experience chi for the first time. He said, hold your hands like you're holding a grapefruit. Your hands are fairly close. Your fingers are maybe half an inch apart, but it's like you're holding a grapefruit. And but your fingers are not touching each other. You relax your arms, and then just hold your hands there like that, and relax your shoulders, relax your arms, and see if you feel something. And I would feel the when he did that, I felt the tingling on the end of my fingers where the chi was jumping, was moving between my hands. So that was my first experience with chi. And then so I started playing around with it, not really understanding it at all. And I got to a point where I would be laying on my bed, and I would hold my arms like I'm holding a bear, and they're above me, and then at some point I could just let my arms go where I wasn't holding them up, and the energy within the middle of between my body and my arms would hold my hands up by itself. It was that strong. And there were, I had many experiences with chi. There was a time where I was doing metaphysics where this lady, within the group, she called in the energy, the chi energy, as part of the ritual. And in the room, it got to where it was like a solid block of ice. It wasn't cold, but it was like, you could feel like it was solid, like everything around you, like you were inside this solid frame of energy. It was so thick, right? And when that happened, there was like somewhere between 20 and 30 people, or maybe more than 30, 35, 40 people in this room, right? And everybody in the room stopped breathing. I mean, literally everybody in the room was not breathing. And the reason why I know it was breathing is because they didn't have to breathe, because the energy in the room was giving them everything they needed. So when you breathe oxygen, you're not really breathing. You're really breathing oxygen, yes, but what sustains your body is the chi within the oxygen. So if you have the oxygen, if you have the chi without the oxygen, you don't need to breathe oxygen because you have the chi. That's because that's really all this.
How long did they go without breathing?
Until she said breathe. She said breathe. That's the only thing she said.
Was it like 15 minutes or like a minute or 30 seconds or?
It was like a minute or 2 or 3 minutes. I don't remember how long it was. It wasn't for, a huge amount of time. We didn't breathe. There was no need to breathe. But, she didn't let it sit there forever. It was like a minute or 2 or 3 minutes. It was something, it wasn't a very long time. In fact, it may not even been a full minute, but the point is we didn't need to breathe. We weren't holding our breath. We were just not needing to breathe. We were just so relaxed that we weren't breathing. If you have enough energy in the room to where you don't need to breathe, you stop breathing naturally. It's a natural part.
I think Wolfman has some chi stories, don't you, Wolfman? Did you ever feel like you had a ball, like you had the fireballs, but did you have like that experience that he had?
Yes, very similar things. But I'd rather hear his stories right now, actually. I'm intrigued.
Shut me down. Why don't you shut me down?
No.
All right, fine.
Which one are you referring to?
No, it's okay. I was just curious.
I've seen a lot of manifestations, of orbs and fiery balls. I had a fireball go right through the room once. My bed levitated when I was a kid.
How do you... That thing sounds really cool.
We were in a metaphysical ceremony one time where the people in the room were all sitting. What would happen is that the people who were being healed would lay in a position like a flower with their heads pointing together, like to the center of the flower, and they were like laying on their backs, right? And they were laying around in a full flower, right? So there's a whole bunch of them, like eight or so people in the center with their heads all laying in the center, right? And then everybody on the outside of them, it was like a circle sending energy, and then there was another circle sending energy, and all these different circles of people wrapped around each other sending energy, just like the Qigong school in China does, the largest medicine hospital in the world. They do the same thing. Anyway, at some point...
It's all about healing?
Well, yeah, and at some point, there was one of the guys in the center started floating off the ground, and he floated to where his heels were touching the floor, and his palm of or like the tips of his fingers were touching the ground. The rest of his body was in a perfect arc above the ground.
You saw it.
Whoa.
Yeah, you couldn't, a contortionist couldn't duplicate this if you paid him $1 million, because this guy was like totally relaxed, and he was floating off the ground. And I talked to some lady, and she said, yeah, sometimes people float all the way up to the ceiling. So, anyway.
Wolfman did that.
What was everyone wearing?
Do you know what? The thing is, when I do those things, I'm not sure how I'm doing it, so I'm not quite exactly... I don't think I could just do it. It happens sometimes, and I'm not quite aware of how I'm doing it.
So do you know what Music of the Spheres is?
I don't.
Very few people know what it is. It's. I've never heard anybody talk about it ever.
Music.
Okay.
Wait.
No, go ahead.
Can I get a quick
Say it again?
question real quick?
Yes.
Ducky, go ahead.
That quick question. These flower petal things these people were making.
Well, they were in the shape of a flower, as in that they were laying in a position where their heads were at the center of the flower and their feet were at the outer edge, and they were going around in a circle. So there was just a bunch of people with their heads in the center of a circle. That's all it was.
Right.
Were they being healed?
What were they wearing?
Yes.
This is important for my documentary.
It was a healing ceremony, yes.
Ceremonial robes? Okay.
What?
Were they wearing magic underwear?
Magic underwear?
Okay.
I'm sorry, I derailed everything.
All right, back to the Music of the Spheres.
Okay, so...
We want to know.
There was a time where I was sitting on the couch, and this happened like maybe 3 or 4 times. And what happened was, okay, so have you ever read the book Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan? There was a physicist. I don't know what type of physicist she was, but she worked for NASA, right? And at some point, I guess she retired from NASA, or maybe on the side. She wrote this metaphysical book called Hands of Light, right? And in the book, you see images of the chakras and all that stuff, the metaphysical parts of your body that channel energy in and out of your body, right? You understand the chakras, right?
I'm well aware of the chakras.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right. So the chakras that are they're not on the top of your head, not on your hands, and not on your feet, face forwards and backwards. They're like in her book, she shows them like the shape of an hourglass going into the center, right? And they're larger on the outside and come to a point in the center. Well, that point where the one in the back and the one in the front, that's the same chakra, goes to the middle of the hourglass. That point where they're together, there's a pole of energy that is you, that goes from infinity down to infinity up. and it's just a vertical pole. It's part of who you are. And so it's an energy pole that's about the size of a quarter or a 50-cent piece, and it's part of who you are. And it's shown in her book as that. But one day I'm sitting on my couch, and I feel on the top of my head this energy, which is me, and I feel it going down through my center, but I don't really notice that energy because it's not really as prominent as the audio portion of it. So the audio portion is what I noticed first. So what I heard was this. It sounds like. You guys watched the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Oh, of course, yeah, with the monolith.
Yeah. Okay. So at the beginning of the show,
yes.
they have the apes, and they're going around the monolith, right? And you hear this sound, like it sounds like angels singing, right? Or what you would think. I'm not saying angels sing like that. I'm just saying if you had to think of angels singing, that might be the sound you would come up, right? Okay, so what I heard was something like that. Now at the end of the movie, you have the astronaut. He's out in space, right? And he's trying to get back into the spaceship, and Hal's not letting him in. The computer's not letting him in. And they play a sound which is representing space, because there is no sound in space, but it's a representative of space, right? And so it's like this, almost like a sound you would hear when you put a seashell over your ear, that type of sound, right? Okay. So if you took those two sounds and combine them together, that's what I heard. Okay. And it's kind of both of those in one. And it was very faint, and then it got louder and louder and louder and louder until it was so loud that I could almost, it was like super loud, right? And then when it gets really loud, the next thing I notice is that my ears are vibrating, right? So I realized that this sound is not coming from, when I first heard it, I thought it was coming from outside of me. And then at some point I realized that is me. That's my sound, the sound of me, right? Okay. So the way you can, this happened like 2 or 3 times, right? And I think it happened like 3 times, right? And so I was like kind of curious about what this phenomena was. And so I went searching, like, what is this? I was trying to find some source of information to figure out what this was, right? So I go down to the library, Houston downtown library is like 10 stories tall, 8 or 10 stories tall. And I go up into this one section, like the 3rd or 4th or 5th floor up, and it's like a metaphysical section or whatever. And I'm looking around trying to find a book about, I don't even remember what I was trying to find at the time. I might not even been thinking about this at the time I was looking for a book. I don't remember what I was actually searching for. But as I was walking down one of the aisles, I looked up and I saw this book, and it had the title on it, Music of the Spheres. And my gaze stopped on it, and I stopped my body, and I'm like, that's a book I need to check out. Intuitively, I knew that there was something about this book. So I reached up, I pulled the book off the shelf.
Okay, let's go back on, because nothing's going on. We're back on the air here. All right. Not sure what happened with...
where do you want to go now?
I want to go to Mars. No, I'm joking. I just want to go to Mars. You want to come with me?
Well, I mean, you ever astral traveled?
Yes, that's a great way to go.
So I've never astral traveled. I did get halfway out of my body one time. I was laying on a bed, and I could see the room like I was awake, but I was not awake. And I sat up with my, I just sat up, and I got about the 45-degree mark, and I couldn't go any further. And I started freaking out and screaming, and I'm like, what the hell? It kind of scared me, and I didn't realize I was halfway out of my body. And then I snapped out of it, woke up, and I was awake. And, but I was really not awake. And, so I've, let's see, I had some headphones on one time. I was sitting on a couch, and I could see the room like I was normal, but I had my eyes closed, but I was seeing through my third eye, right? And I didn't even know what the third eye was, but I got up and I started to walk across the room, and I realized I had my eyes closed, and I had headphones on that were hooked to something, I stopped. I was like, oh, I didn't realize I had my eyes closed. I thought my eyes were open. But no, I've never astral traveled. I've never done that.
Okay, but you've done fire. I'm just reading here. Fire walking.
Well, okay, so let me give you a fire walking story. So I was down at the have you ever been to Galveston?
No. But I'm not from the States. I'm from Canada, right?
Okay,
Galveston, Texas.
But these other guys are.
So in Galveston, Texas, there's what they call the Moody Gardens Crystal Pyramid, right? And every year at New Year's Eve, and on New Year's Eve, they have a party there every year, and it can be a meditation. Part of it will be a meditation, but it's a metaphysical party, right? So they'll also have, like one year they had a fire walk, right? And I had a boss one time that was taught by Tony Robbins how to fire walk, but that's another story. But anyway,
I love how you throw these little things in that are awesome, and then you just keep on going.
Yeah, Tony Robinson doing a fire walk.
Hold on. So
that's another story. We'll talk about it later.
Hold on. Another story.
So we're out behind the Moody Gardens Pyramid, right? And they got the fire, all the coals hotter than you know what, and you couldn't get like 30 to 50 feet from these things without not going closer to them because they were so hot, right? And I just watched the people walk across them. I didn't do a fire walk, but I watched other people do it because I wasn't trained, right? So this one guy walks halfway across the coals, and then he turns, and he just stands there, and he stands there for like 5 minutes, just staring at me.
Wow!
And I'm like, holy crap!
What?
And this is totally impossible, right?
I've never seen anyone just stand there on them.
Yeah, he did it. He stood there for like
anyone stop on a firewalk.
He stood there for like at least 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes. Okay, without moving, just staring at me. It was weird. I was like, this is like impossible. But anyway, I interviewed a guy, one of my bosses for my book, and the interview is in my book. It's about firewalking, the secrets that Tony Robbins taught him about firewalking. That's in my book. So.
Wow. Tony Robbins, the firewalker.
I thought the key was not to stop. I thought the key was not to stop walking.
It's the state of no mind. It's the state of non-thinking.
There's you're trying. Yes, you're trying. That's right. You actually know one of the secrets. You have to get to the no thought level, and you have to. They say kumas, kumas, kumas over and over, and they make a movement that's like a punch or something that a person feels is makes them powerful, and they do that over and over to try to get them to where they're in a state of feeling powerful. And I think that's probably the two only secrets I remember him telling me. But,
has anyone ever failed at firewalking? Like got like 3 steps in and then hopped off?
Oh shit! Yeah, there's casualties.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people have done that.
And there was a guy on Survivor. Like, remember that show Survivor?
Yeah.
I think it's still on the air actually, which is weird.
39th season. Yeah.
Yeah, like season 4 or something. Some dude fell into the fire and he had to be airlifted out.
Okay.
Yeah, 3rd-degree burns.
Well, that's more impressive knowing that people have actually failed.
There's been fails, definitely.
Well, we used to race street race motorcycles, and where we raced was there was canyons on both sides. So if you fell off, you're going to die, right? And so if you wreck, you're dead, right? You have to be on your bike, and so there were people life flighted out of there, and I don't know if they died or not, but it's the good old days, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of danger.
Yeah, do you know where the Devil's Backbone is?
No.
Utah?
I was gonna say Arizona.
No, it's in West Texas. It's in West Texas.
Oh.
It's between Austin and San Antonio in West Texas, and believe me, it is twisty. It's a fun road to go really fast on.
You ever been to Schlitterbahn?
I've never gone into the Schlitterbahn, but I've been to it. I would always.
Okay, it says here the
always
crystal,
go down the river.
The Crystal Skull.
Okay, so so I'll take you through the ceremony. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of crystal skulls, right? And there's 13 of them or something like that. And there's a lot of metaphysical mumbo jumbo that kind of goes around them. But one of the crystal skulls he's the only crystal skull in the world that's used for metaphysical purposes, right? His name is Max.
And where did you encounter these?
Male?
Hold on.
Max?
One at a time now. What's the question?
Where did you first encounter Max?
So Max's home is housed in Pasadena near Houston. That's where he lives. Okay, so the owner, who's probably not around anymore, she would bring him over to Houston and have metaphysical ceremonies, and I went through one of those, and that's an interesting story if you want me to tell it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Okay, so in this ceremony, there was the women that were so the owner of Max she wasn't the person who ran the ceremony. In this particular ceremony, it was run by a lady named Star. Okay, so the Star and the owner were sitting next to Max or near Max, and there was some other young girls that were sitting in that area near Max, right? And their eyes rolled up into the top of their head, and they started basically what happened was they were possessed by the spirit of Indian shamans who were deceased, and they started singing Indian songs, but their eyes were rolled up in the top of their head, and their eyes were open and white, just like on the TV series Heroes. When they would start painting, they would that one character paint. His eyes would roll up into the top of his head, and he would start painting. That's one of the symptoms of possession. I was at a ashram.
Yes, that's true.
I was at an ashram down in Homestead, and I was walking around, and everybody was doing their meditation, and I opened this one cabinet. There was a floor-to-ceiling cabinet, and I opened the top half of the cabinet, and there was a guy inside the cabinet meditating, and his eyes were rolled up in the top of his head, and his eyes were open. They were white, so he was possessed.
That's freaky.
So, and then there was a TV show. I forgot what it was called. It was one of the paranormal shows that used to come on, and there was a family that bought a house in Thailand that was cursed, and the guy who built the house made the house too cursed, the owners, and it was made to bring in the wrong energy and stuff. And one of the daughters got possessed, and when you see in the shows her getting possessed, her head kind of pushes back, and it comes back forward, and her eyes are open. They roll up in the top of her head, or you see the white of her eyes. She's possessed. So that's one of the symptoms of possession. My wife did. She was possessed.
Did Max have anything to do with that? To get back to the crystal skull?
Well, they weren't possessed by, as far as I'm aware, I didn't feel any negative energy in that room. So I didn't get the notion they were possessed by evil spirits. They were just possessed by dead Indian shamans. And so when possession is, even though we typically know it as an evil occurrence, it's not always evil beings that possess you. You can call in any kind of spirit, angels are not going to get in your body like that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a demon. It could be, there was a guy, historically, a guy who would be possessed by the dead spirit of a surgeon who was actually a very talented surgeon, and the guy that was alive was not that talented. He was a doctor, but he wasn't a talented surgeon. When the dead surgeon would go into his body, he would start cutting on people, and he would, heal them through surgery. But the living guy wasn't that talented as a surgeon, but the dead guy who came into him was. So it's not.
That sounds like Star Trek.
It's not always demons.
A child could do it. A child could do it. Remember that?
Yeah.
With Bones?
I don't.
Yeah, he was changing Spock's brain out.
I do remember that.
Oh, but I do have a Star Trek show that fits in with our show. Okay, so do you remember the Star Trek show called Day of the Dove?
Day of the Dove.
Was it an original one?
Yeah.
No.
What happened in
I
it?
probably
I don't know,
but I don't remember the title.
Okay, so in that episode, the Enterprise crew is fighting the Klingons, right? This is before we ever had a truce with the Klingons, right?
Oh yes.
So they're on both crews are on a space station. They're having leave where the Klingon crew and the
I remember that
and the Enterprise crew are together on a space station. They're both having leave. High. And the tensions are high, and they start killing each other, chopping each other up, and they die. And then the guy who's dead comes back to life, and they keep killing each other. And at some point in the show, Captain Kirk looks up he's standing in this room, and he looks up and he sees this disincarnate spirit, alien thing that's just an energy form that's morphing around in the room, in the upper part of the room. And he looks up and sees it. And for the first time, and he's like, and he realizes, oh, that being is feeding off the energy of them killing each other. So that's about as close as you can get to the truth of reality as anybody's ever done on a science fiction show. The only difference between that episode and the real world is the war caused by attached spirits, not spirits floating in the air. Okay, now let's move from there to the same thing about war. So one of the symptoms of attaching spirits listed in my title of my book is war. So do any of you guys watch TV?
Of course.
Oh, yeah, I guess once in a while.
I'm anti-war also.
I watch Star Trek.
So do you watch The Dead Files?
No.
Yes, I've watched a bit.
Okay. All right. So there's one episode where they're in, I don't remember where it was. It could have been New Mexico. It could have been Texas. I don't remember what state it was in. It could have been Arizona for all I know. But they're in a southern state where, and I have the text somewhere. I don't have it handy at the moment, but I'll just give you the gist of it. So she's talking, and her partner is, they have a dialogue going between them, and they're talking about what happened previously in that area. And so they're talking about the Indians. So he starts out with saying, well, such and such Indians lived here for like 100 years, and then such and such other Indians took their place for another 100 years, and then such and such other Indians took their place for another 200 years. And this happened for like 300-400 years, right? One taking the place of another, taking the place of another. And they had really, really fierce wars between different Indian tribes for hundreds and hundreds of years, for like 300 or 400 years, right? Basically, the dialogue came down to she's saying, yes, the dead were causing these wars. So the dead were causing the Indian wars. The dead are still causing wars today. Attaching spirits are the cause of war. The most common symptom of attaching spirits is not war, it's speeding. So let's go to speeding. So I was in I was in Austin, Texas, and I was going to a ghost hunt meetup. Have you ever gone to a meetup group?
Never.
Okay,
maybe Wolfman has.
Yeah, a little bit.
Ducky has.
Yeah, not a ghost meetup, but yeah.
Okay, well, they got meetup groups all over the place, right? Well, this was a ghost meetup group, right? Same website, www.meetup. Whatever it is. Okay, so I went to this ghost hunters meetup for the first time. I'd never been to it before. It was in Austin, Texas. And when I arrived, I walked in the room. I got there late because I couldn't find the place. For some reason, I couldn't find the place, right? So I arrived late, and the girl who's supposed to be speaking about ghosts, she's standing at the podium. Or actually, I don't remember if she was standing behind a podium or not. But she was just standing there in the room, right? And I walked past her, and I walk all the way across the middle of the room. There's nobody in the middle. And I walk all the way to the other side of the room, and I sit down. I turn around and sit down. And I continue listening, and she's talking, right, while I'm walking in the room. And I realize she's not talking about ghosts. She's talking about demons, right? So there's a lady. I didn't notice them right at the beginning, but there's a lady sitting down to her left. And it's a woman, a regular woman. And then on the other side of her is her daughter. And I don't remember which side they were sitting on compared to each other. It really is unimportant for the story. Okay, so the speaker is talking about demons, and she's talking about the lady and daughter sitting next to her, right? She's standing up and they're sitting down. She's talking about them, and she's talking about demons. And this lady is a witch, right? And her daughter is a witch, right? So they conjure in their apartment or their house. I don't remember if it was a house or apartment. It's unimportant. But in their dwelling, they conjured up a demon, right? And they couldn't get it out. So they called the paranormal researcher, which is the lady, the young lady. I call her a girl. She was like 18 to 20-ish, and or maybe 20 at the most. And she's talking about the lady the witch and her daughter the witch, and she's talking about the demon they have conjured up. And she goes as the paranormal researcher to investigate their dwelling, and she doesn't even know if demons are real. She doesn't necessarily believe in demons, right? So she's skeptical, and she's going to go check it out. And she goes into this dwelling, and it starts screwing with her, right? And then it does all these things to her while she's in this dwelling, and then she leaves. And she's talking about all these things it does to her, right? And I don't remember what the symptoms were because it's not important. It wasn't important enough for me to remember. But after she gets through talking, people start asking questions. And everybody asks all their questions until everybody's asked their question, and the room falls silent. When that happens, I start asking questions. And I ask question after question after question after it's like one question after another, right? And so there's one question I ask her that I'll never forget. Her answer was, okay, I said to her, what of all the things it did to you, what symptom lasted the longest after you left? And she said one word. What do you think that word was? You got to guess.
Sadness? I don't know.
It's a good question.
Go ahead. Everybody has to guess first.
Okay, everybody guess.
Oh God, pain. Okay. No.
What did I say was the symptom of most common symptom? just before we started talking about this meetup, I told you what the most common symptom was. What did I say? What was it? Do you remember? Speeding.
Yeah.
She said speeding.
Oh.
I said speeding. The symptom that the demon put upon you was speeding. Really? And I was very skeptical. I said, we all speed. What does demons have to do with speeding? And then she explained, said, I'm not a speeder. I've never sped. I don't speed. For 2 weeks after I walked out of this dwelling, I sped around everywhere. Then it wore off. Then I went back to my normal state of not speeding. So she wasn't a speeder before. She was a speeder for 2 weeks after. And then she went back to her normal state of not speeding. So that's giving you the proof that speeding is caused by attaching spirits. So that's one of the other symptoms. And I could go on and on. But,
can you get that? Can you be with no spirits attached to you?
Oh, that's true.
You're asking me if there are people there's no way they would have a spirit attached to them?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking? Okay,
That's
so
I've
heard rumors of such people, but I don't know that I've met one. But I have met a lot of people who assume they don't have them. That's very common. If you meet a Christian, they will make the absolute assumption that protected and have no attaching spirits. Every single one of them will do that.
But they believe in guardian angels.
Well, they believe in Christ protecting them from attaching spirits, and that they won't be having attaching spirits as long as they believe in Christ. That's what they believe, and they believe that absolutely.
Guardian angels, though, isn't a guardian angel pretty much an attached spirit?
No, well, guardian angels don't attach, and they are real also. But let's go there, since you want to go there. Let's go there. Okay, so
yes.
my abductee client, who was used as a breeder for the Greys, right? One of the very first things we got into, she came to me for back pain and obesity, right? And I'm not going to go through the alien stuff because we just don't have time for it at the moment. Okay,
Hold on 1 second. So how did you become a regressive hypnotherapist for this kind of stuff?
Because we used to play around with metaphysics, and where I used to play around with metaphysics, there was a guy who came to that house and was teaching hypnotherapy. His name was Ed Martin.
How long did you do this? How many clients did you have? How many alien?
I have been a therapist for since I was, I don't know, fairly young, 18-ish, or no, it's like 22, 23, something like that. It was, subtract that from 50, subtract 23 from 58. That's how long I've been a hypnotist.
Okay. All right, so back to the session.
I forgot where we were. Remind me where we were.
You had a client, you had a lady that came in there about the Greys.
Oh, yeah, my client was used as a breeder for the Greys, but she, what were we talking about? We're talking about, what were we talking about?
Where were we going?
No, I can tell you.
Help us.
Where were we at?
We were, oh man.
Demons, right?
Not demons, angels.
Angels.
Yeah, guardian angels.
We are at the top of the hour.
So,
we are at the top of the hours. Let's come back with the angel talk.
Let's not forget where we were.
We're not gonna.
Angel talk. Coming back at you with some angel talk.
We are at the top of the hour on Wolf
Monster Castle. Here on the radio.
Explore paranormal phenomenon with researchers and skeptics from all walks of life and beyond.
This is where all the real freaks hang out.
She said, put sights on me. I was somewhere lost, pinned to the cross of what was and what will be. Said I'll take that back. She asked a cigarette. dark in the New York City park. That's someone holy in the holiest of old. All were Christian soldiers filled with driving mind control. The blood left on the dance floor, running red. The bullet that you asked for, killing you to death unless you someone killed the DJ. The fucking DJ. Someone killed the DJ. The fucking DJ. Someone killed the DJ. The fucking DJ. Voices in my head are saying, shoot that fucker down. We have emotions today, is gone. The culture works in your heart and your mind.
Okay, we're ready. Let's go.
Okay, so we were talking about angels, right? Are we ready?
And we're going to be right. We are right back. We're here. We are back.
All right.
All right.
Actually, literally right back.
And we're back.
Okay.
We're talking about guardian angels.
Guardian angels. So I was starting to talk about a client of mine who was used as a breeder for the Greys, right? So one of the very first things we noticed when in one of the sessions was that she noticed her husband was floating in the room above where we were. She said when she would look up, she had her eyes closed, but when she would look up inside her head towards that area, he would like go away. But if she didn't look, she would notice, she could feel him up there. Her husband had just died, very recently, just before that session, right? Like days before. And so, she was still getting over his death, right? And so, one thing she mentioned is that her uncle was her guardian angel. He would watch over her after he died. And then when her husband died, he took over from her uncle as her guardian angel. And she'd be like going through her daily routine. Like she would say in the afternoon, she would go to get some caffeinated coffee off the shelf, and all of a sudden the decaf would jump off the shelf by itself. And she knew that was her ex-husband knocking the decaf off the shelf. And she'd hear in her head, drink the decaf. The caffeinated will keep you up all night. That was her ex-husband being her guardian angel, right? So that's really the whole story. But there was a lady I went to meditation with a long time ago who told me a guardian angel, or an angel story. She wasn't a Christian, but when she was a kid, she was in the crib long before she even knew what an angel was. And she said this angel came floating next to her crib. And to be honest, I think she was probably too young to know what an angel was at that age, at the age of 2 or 3 or 4 years of age. When she's in a crib, she would not know what an angel is at that age. So, but she said she saw it, and then I guess later on she understood that was an angel somehow. But it didn't have wings, and somehow she knew it was an angel. So anyway, there's another one. But anyway, you were talking about going to hell. Did you want to go there?
Was I talking about that?
I actually don't want to go to hell if it really exists, but we can go and talk about it. But I don't want
Okay, so I did the ayahuasca, and do you know where the largest? Do you know what the largest city is in the Amazon rainforest?
I don't. Can you tell us?
It's Iquitos, Iquitos. It's the largest city.
I didn't know that.
I couldn't tell you how big it is, but I can tell you it's the largest city in the Amazon rainforest.
Do you know they have catfish that'll swim right up your penis and latch on inside there, eh?
Well,
they're not catfish.
Yes, they're actually a subspecies of catfish, and they're really small. And if you pee while you're in the water, they will. That's why those Indians have those things tied around their.
They have. There are catfish that are big enough to eat humans.
They have them too. Yeah, they have catfish that are small enough to latch themselves inside your. I think it's your urethra. Yeah.
Yes.
And big enough to eat you. They're horrible.
So anyway,
horrible catfish.
I did the ayahuasca 3 times, and
wow.
And if you go and watch the videos and you go and read the accounts on the web, what you'll find is the most common experience that people have is hell. So
really,
yeah. So that's when you hear all these positive experiences, you just tell the person, well, you're not the common person. Most people have hell. So that's the most common experience.
Mm-hmm.
And you went there 3 times, and did you go to hell 3 times?
Well, the first time, it got rid of all the tension in my body, so it was a positive experience. And little did I know that was going to lead to something worse in the second session. The second session was hell, and the third session was hell. So to describe it is like impossible, but I'll do my best. So as I read somewhere and all the experience, I was reading and watching videos for like a year before I ever did it. And in one of those videos, or on one of those articles, I read somewhere or heard somewhere that most people do not see anything. It's not a visual trip. It's a non-visual. It's not like acid. Okay, and so it's an energetic trip. Your body changes, and I don't know how you would have hell without any visual component. You're basically in a state where you believe you're in hell, even though you're not really in hell. You're still on earth, but you feel like you're in hell, and you're Okay, so I'll give you an example of how it affected me. You throw up, right? You throw up and you throw up and you throw up some more, right? And you keep throwing up, right? And I have another story about that, and we'll get into that in a minute if you want. But anyway, at some point you may want to actually have stuff go out the other end also, right? So I had it like that. Right. So I was at a point where I needed to take a dump really, really quick, right? So I stood up and I started walking towards the back door of the very large thatched hut we're in. And I get about halfway to that door and I defecate in my pants, right? Because I couldn't hold it. And so I keep walking out the door, walk out and walk across the walkway, which goes out over the water. And I walk into this little bitty tiny thatched hut with a toilet in the middle of it. And I shut the door and I take off my pants and I dip them in the water and get them up as much as I can and sit down and finish defecating. And so anyway, a lot of bathroom stories tonight. So, did you go to hell?
Real talk.
Well, I was in an energetic form of hell, yes. So, it's not. I can't really describe it because you don't see anything. There's no visual component. It's just an energetic. My attaching spirit that sits on my head was basically trying to take over my body, and it said to me, okay, so there was another guy in one of the ceremonies. I think it was the last ceremony I was in. This guy, he started saying, "Ow, ow, 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 ow." He kept saying it, "Ow," like something was hurting him, right? Really loud. And in between the ow, he'd say, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Ow, 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 I'm sorry." And then the shaman went over to try to help the guy, right? And at some point, very quickly, his voice went down really, 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 really deep that I can't even duplicate it, right? And then it started saying things that a human would not say, and ever under any circumstances, even if they were like super, super angry, they would never say these things. Okay, and it was very, 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 very deep, right? And I knew that was a very dark spirit in him, a demon. And so my spirit in my head said to me, if that demon reaches its goal, then everybody in this room will die. And so that's part of. It's a very long story, but that's part of it. So
yeah.
So would you ever do that again?
Like words?
Well, if you sat a cup of ayahuasca in front of me and put a gun in my head, I would say pull the trigger. I'm not drinking it.
Yeah. That's how much you hated it. The last time.
Journey to hell and back.
The second time and the third time. Second time and the third time. So let's go. Let's go.
Hallucinogenics? Oh yeah. What do you want to talk about?
Okay, so the next logical step to talk about is the 2 years that occurred in my life after the ayahuasca. Okay, so what ayahuasca does to you is it opens you up like a can. So you take a can opener and you put it on the top of the can opener, and you go around the corner until the can is open, and you pull the top off, right? And the can is now open, right? So ayahuasca did that to me. It opened me up like you do with a can, right? And basically I was like a psychic for 2 years, like a super psychic. And I could see who had attaching spirits and who didn't have attaching spirits. And I actually saw an attaching spirit. So let's go there. So I was standing in the courtyard of an apartment in Manassas, Virginia, and where George Washington was inducted into the Freemasons. And there was a little girl there who was probably 5 or 6 at the most. She could have been 4 or 5, and she was holding a leash, and the leash was hooked. It was stretched out tight, and it was hooked to the collar of a pit bull, or actually it was a bulldog, and the dog was barking at me like it wanted to attack me, and the girl's eyes were moving around in her head really fast, and that was a symptom of her having attaching spirit. That was her astral body or causal body, mental body, etheric body, something. It was one of her bodies, but it looked to me like it was her physical body, like her eyes were actually moving around, but I'm sure it was not. But in any case, I knew that she had an attaching spirit in that moment in real time. So there were many other experiences like that over the 2-year period. I'll give you another one. I was walking around the street one day, and I was kind of distraught. I was being kind of attacked by dark spirits a lot, and I looked around, and every single person driving their car and everybody walking on the street, every single person had their eyes doing that. So I knew every single person had attaching spirits. And there's another moment where I was in a courtyard. I was in a courthouse. I was outside the courtroom in the corridor of the courthouse, okay, waiting to go in the courtroom where the judge is. The door was shut, and I'm sitting on a bench. There's benches on both sides of this hallway, and I'm looking around, and about a third, somewhere between a fourth and a third, about a third of the people in the room or in the hallway had their eyes jumping around in their head, and the rest of the people were normal. I knew that the people with their eyes jumping around had attaching spirits, and I knew that they were the people who were accused of committing crimes, who were going in to be judged by the judge. And the other people who didn't have the attaching spirits, whose eyes were normal, were their relatives who hadn't committed any crime. I knew all of that intuitively. But the experiences that were more prominent than even that were even more interesting. Like, for instance, I'll give an example. My wife and I were laying in bed. The dogs were in the bed with us. The dogs sleep in the bed with us, right? And so, in the living room of this Manassas apartment, an explosion occurs, like somebody literally set off a hand grenade, a very loud explosion. And so the dogs jump up, and they're like barking their heads off because of this explosion. So I walk in the living room. Nothing in the living room. Okay. And so we would hear, like somebody's knocking on the wall, but it wasn't rapping, because my wife and I have heard rapping in many places, and rapping sounds like somebody knocking on the wall. But what I'm talking about is not that. It's not rapping, which is paranormal in and of itself, but it sounds different. What I'm talking about is different than that. This was like something was knocking on a barrier that's beyond the walls, and they're hitting on it really, and they're really big, like a 10,000 pound per being, or something is hitting on something really hard, trying to get in. And so basically what I'm trying to tell you is that I became psychic, and I could see the dark things in this world that people don't see, except people do see them. Now from here, what?
Can you see we have dark attached spirits to us?
Well, let me go there. Let me go there, because I almost forgot about this story. So I was standing in the same. What? I was standing in a corridor, right? The same apartment complex, and there was another lady standing next to me one day. And in the middle of the day, she was one of my neighbors that we talked to frequently. She's standing there. It's an older lady. She had lupus, right? And so she's standing like maybe twice as far as my length of my arm, maybe 6 feet from me. And she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her. And all of a sudden, her attaching spirit rises up off her body and starts moving at me. And what it looked like was like a, you know how a genie a genie looks, not in I Dream of Jeannie, but in the old shows where they portrayed a genie as a large male spirit that's a guy that's super overdeveloped muscles and all that, you know, big, huge male human thing. Okay. Well, it looked like that, except it was barely visible, but it was visible enough for me to like see it, but it wasn't really, it was almost like the other thing that was hovering in the doorway. It wasn't really visible truly. It was like sort of visible, but not really. It's kind of hard to explain, but it was, it came up off of her life size and started moving at me really quick. And I like started moving backwards and almost fell down because I was like trying to get away, you know. And that's the only attaching spirit I've ever seen in my life. So
what happened? Did it hop on your other shoulder? What happened?
It just disappeared.
You just described a 3D hologram. Yeah,
could have been Could have been a djinn, it could have been a genie.
Not disappear, I am still right here.
So Mike, after you saw all this stuff and all the dark, and you know, is hell real? In the dark side?
Actually, there are many hell realms. Okay, there's a book called Beyond the Light. It was written by Betty Eadie, and it gets into less LTPEs. Do you know what an LTPE is? An LTPE,
different levels of hell and heaven.
Well, an LTPE is a less than positive experience. They call them LTPEs. Now, if you look at the near-death experience research that I think his name is Ian Stevenson. If you look at that research that's been going on for quite a long time, 22% of people who have near-death experiences have LTPEs. So 22% is 1 out of 5 people. So 4 people have positive experiences and 1 person has a hellish experience. Now the hells that they go to are not burning in fire hells. They're just different types of hells that are hellish, but they're not that hell. Okay. Do you know who Daniel Brinkley is?
Of course.
Okay, so Daniel Brinkley spawned a a organization called the CIA. It's called Compassion in Action. He would go to visit dying vets in the hospitals and sit next to them and listen to their stories. And his program, the Compassion in Action, I got trained under that program, and I was standing talking to the teacher, and she would start talking about, I said, have you ever seen something? I don't remember exactly what I asked her, a dead spirit or something, or ghost or whatever. And she said, yeah, one of my people that I watched die in the hospice, he came back and he was standing in the room with me. He was still kind of dark and malevolent like he was when he was alive. And so when people die, what happens is the attaching spirits that are attached to them are still attached to them while they're on the other side. And so when I was in...
So I was just going to your book again. We are eternal beings. Past lives, future lives, interlife experiences, and choosing one's incarnation.
Yes.
And so just how do you apply that to what you're just saying right now?
Well, do we choose to come and have these spirits? Do we choose the spirits that are on us?
Okay, so let's go for the meaning of life. Do you know the meaning of life?
Basically, I think you have to find out your own artistic expression. And if you don't achieve that artistic expression that everybody has, sort of a flavor or a song, and you have to express that.
No. The meaning of life can be stated in 9 words. It's very simple. Life is here it is. Life is a gift that you give to yourself. 9 words. That's what it is. That's the only meaning.
Life is a gift that you give to yourself.
Yes, that's the whole, that's all of it. That's all of it. That's 100%. That's all life is. It's a gift. You choose it. You take it on. Okay, so here's how I learned that. I was in an Eckankar worship service. I'm not sure if you know what Eckankar is, but I was in an Eckankar worship service in Portland, Oregon, many, many moons ago. Okay, and there was a guy there, and he was talking about how he regressed himself to where he had his pre-birth experience, and he was standing in a place. You can't call it a room because there was no walls. Okay, he was standing in a place, and there was these beings of light, and they were showing him. Okay, I actually skipped a part. The first of the story. Hold on. Let me. I'm gonna go back. I actually have to go back to the beginning of his story. The beginning of his story is he's standing in this place, and he's seeing these Rolodexes, and on the Rolodexes they have pictures, but they're not static pictures. They're portals to a reality. He said you couldn't look at the picture too closely because if you did, you'd get sucked into that life, into that world.
Sounds
so
like
he was
Star Trek.
Right.
And they go
So
through
he's
the portal from the discs.
So he's seeing these Rolodexes, and they're like stretching out as far as the eye can see. With the images on them, they're not really images, they're portals, right? And the beings are showing him the different lifetimes he can have. And then further on in the story, he's being shown the images, living images of a particular life shown like it's up on a wall, but there's no walls. So he's seeing these living, moving images, 2-dimensional, up, where he can look at them, and those are actual a future life possibility that he can take. So he's going to the end stage of choosing a life. And then the stage after that, he was actually going through the future life itself, actually living that experience to see if he wanted to take that experience. He actually got to live a part of it during that process of choosing it. So those were the 3 stages. And that was the first time I heard about somebody choosing their life. Then I took people, my clients, through the the experience of choosing their life. What they did was they would be like in between a life, and they would come across this being, and the being would be like a light being, and the being would be a being of light, but it would also be a portal, and they would be standing next to this being of light, and they would have a life review, and they're still on the earth. They haven't even gone on to the other side, right?
That's right.
And they would see this. They would come upon this light being.
I see the light. I see it, man.
And they would have a life review, and they would choose to go on or not. And so this one guy, he's like, has this experience, right? And then he chooses to go on, right? And I'm like,
dude,
where's he going?
Are we gonna have another break here?
I don't know.
This is coming up, so just to let you know,
I don't need one.
It hits us this time. We are at the bottom of the hour.
Do you want to take another break, Mike?
I'm okay.
Okay,
me too.
So after this, I'm gonna give you one example. After this one person, I had multiple clients who had the same experience where they were in between lives and they came across this being that was also a being of light that was also a portal. Multiple of my clients had that same experience, right? So one of them had that experience and then he chose to go on. And I was curious, where's he going to, right?
You mean not have another life?
No, hold on. Let me finish. I'll explain. Okay. So he went on, right? So in the experience of going on, he's like, actually, I'm probably morphing in two different stories. So I'll give you this other story, which I'm kind of I'm actually taking two stories and accidentally morphing them together.
Hey, it's okay. Hollywood does it all the time. So
there was one guy who. That's a different guy. So. This other guy, he's dead, right? So he's walking around on the earth, right? He goes to his house and he's like, first thing he does is he's trying to
I know this joke. I hate the punchline, or no. I'm joking.
He's going around. He's trying to have sex with women, right? And
my God, it is a joke. This is not a joke, is it?
Sex is not a joke, right?
Okay, all right.
He's going up to women and he's trying to like touch them and have them, touch him and stuff. And he, like, his hand would go right through them and they couldn't see him, and how that story goes, right? So at some point he got bored with trying to influence women when he couldn't do anything with them, right? And so he decides to go on, right? And so what he does is he sees himself going up in the sky. It's like in the one evening, and he's going and he sees a doorway of light, right? And there's a doorway, and there's these lights around the doorway. They look like physical lights, like square lights, right? And when there's a doorway in the middle, and he goes into this doorway, and there's the light, right? And he goes into the light, and basically what happens is it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter until his whole world is just light, right? And then it starts dimming back down. And I'm like, okay, so what's next? So guess where he's at? You got to guess before I tell you.
You are amazing, sir. The way you do that to the audience, you make them interact. Now, you fucking either answer him or he'll not tell the rest of the story. You get it, folks? Either you didn't listen to the start, or that's it. You will be electrocuted by Igor.
So where was he? Guess.
An alien planet.
Nope. Go ahead. Somebody else.
The universe. I think you just shot out like 7 billion light years out. We're fucked.
Nope. Anybody else? Is that everybody?
I think it's Oliver Twist.
Okay, so no, that's wrong too. So what happened was he was laying on an operating table. He had just been born again.
So let's take Nick for example. Nick has chosen a life where he's got cerebral palsy and he can't talk and he's in a chair all day long.
Right.
Does he choose this on purpose to learn special?
Yes. You choose all of your life.
to choose a life that was hard.
It's hard to say that.
Well,
Why wouldn't most people
okay,
choose
so
easy life?
I'm going to give you another experience, another story.
I've thought about that before, about people, maybe we're all immortal beings and we choose something, and some of us choose to go hard,
Yeah.
Well, there's a lady. Do y'all know the hospice ladies? Have y'all ever heard? Are y'all familiar with the hospice ladies? There's two ladies.
I worked for hospice. Daniel Brinkley actually affected me, and I ended up joining hospice, as a volunteer for like 8 years.
Okay, so do you know who the two most famous hospice ladies are in the whole world? Do you know who they are?
I saw the books there, but I never pulled them and read them.
Okay, so I don't remember the ladies off the top of my head, but there's two ladies. They're the world's most famous hospice ladies ever. Okay, so this one lady, one of those two ladies, she was standing up at a podium one day, and she's given the story of her life, right? And there's some monks in the room, some Buddhist monks, and so she's telling them the story about her life, and she would sit by the bedside of the dying people, and she would listen to their stories. And she said one day she had this cosmic consciousness experience where she was like everything and expanded and all this stuff. She had this super duper full, big, huge consciousness expanding experience, right? And she said, I don't know why this happened, because I'd never meditated. I don't do any meditation. I don't do any focus. I don't do any special techniques. Why did I have this awesome super expansion of my consciousness? Why did this happen? And she didn't understand it, right? So that was the sort of the end of her story, right? She was asking that question at the end of her story. And then after the story, after she got through with her speech, one of the monks walked up to her and said, you spend your life focusing your consciousness on listening to these people dying. That focus is like any other meditation. It's a focus of your awareness. And the more you focus, the more your consciousness develops in some fashion or expands. So you've just been meditating without meditating. You've been focusing your awareness on listening to the people's story who are dying. She was actually listening instead of thinking about what happens tomorrow or whatever. So that's another story. So anyway, more questions.
Whoa,
that was really great insight, sir. That was amazing. I loved it. Oh,
well,
man.
You can say it in many ways.
No matter what anyone thinks, if this man's stories or he's making them up, that was great insight either way. You can't knock that.
Well, I'm not talented enough to make up stories. I can remember what happened to me, but I couldn't. If I was making stuff up, I couldn't remember it. My memory's not that good. I smoked too much pot.
We've got skeptics I do have skeptics that listen in, and they're listening and they're going, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. The same way they take my. It's the same thing, and it's.
You stop smoking
tough
pot. Do you still do any hallucinogenics or any drugs whatsoever?
Well, like 3 or 4 years ago, I did the ayahuasca, and that was the last thing I'll ever do as far as hallucinogens. I will never do any.
See, a lot of people say that once they do the ayahuasca, that's it. They're done with everything, and they pretty much figured stuff out, and that's good. It's like an awakening experience. Graham Hancock, the same thing. Then he was finished with that's it, and he's done with the stuff.
They say the first time's the best, and then everything else after that sucks. That's what I've heard. I've never.
Well, yeah, I'm not knowledgeable enough on the DMT experience is totally different from the ayahuasca experience, and they're not like each other at all. But the DMT experience, you go off into another world. And I talked to a guy one time before I'd really researched DMT that much, and he had done DMT, and I said, "Tell me your story," and he's like, "Hell no," and I said, "Why not?" And he said, "Oh, I'm not saying a word about it. It's too scary of an experience for him to even talk about." He was too scared of it coming back, as in recall or whatever.
Oh, I've got a piece here. This is great. Okay, since we're at, oh man, we got 20 minutes to roll here without an interruption to the top of the hour. NASA's Cape Canaveral base on the morning of the first shuttle launch, April 13th, 1981. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you mean the piece I have at the very
second
top.
encounter. It says aliens and demons. My second encounter. NASA's Cape Canaveral base.
Feel it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at the very top, it basically says everything. Driving slowly on the Cape Canaveral before the first space shuttle launch, I begin to feel the need to tell these strangers about my first and most spectacular close encounter of the second kind back on October 3rd, 1980, exactly 11 p.m. at my house off Clay and Gessner in Houston, Texas. By the way, did y'all hear about the explosion that happened in Houston the other day that killed 2 people and leveled about 200 houses?
No, not at all. No. So what the fuck? Really?
Okay, so it leveled like 200 houses and killed a couple people, and that happened about maybe 100 yards from where this house is sitting.
Why didn't we hear about this?
That's weird.
Because you were not watching the nightly news. It was on every channel. The news.
Maybe in your area. I'm in
for
Canada.
2 days.
I'm in Canada.
For 2 days. It was on ABC, NBC, and CBS.
I believe
for 2 nights in a row.
Okay, so I missed it.
So anyway, there's a grinding company that grinds stuff, and there was some kind of gas that developed and blew up, and it destroyed houses, like 200 houses it destroyed.
Oh my God!
So
terrible.
Anyway, that was that establishment, the grinding company, is literally like 2 blocks from where I'm talking about this story. Okay, so the Clay and Gessner, the building was at Clay and Gessner, just like I say on that line there, Clay and Gessner. That's where that building was. Okay, so as I finished telling these people they're in the station wagon that I'm in, the story, the young German gentleman sitting in the passenger seat chuckles in disbelief. Because of the disbelief, I wish God would show them too. In that same second, as if it were a response to my prayer, a dark craft exactly resembling the craft I just finished describing hovers directly above the curving causeway. Lights slowly rotate on its cloud-like edge as it hovers perfectly stationary just above the middle of the road, a good distance in front of the car. It grows larger as we slowly draw closer. Maybe that's what he saw, the German kid says. I start to take a picture. That's all at the very top of my book page. That's an excerpt, which I just read. And so basically I was, okay, so I have to go back a little bit. My father owned a Corvette that would probably worth somewhere, if I owned it today, my father's dead, but if I owned that Corvette today, it would probably be worth somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million. Okay, it was a pre-production Corvette. Like if you said, here's number 1, here's the first Corvette ever to be produced, it was before that. It was put on the road before they started producing them, right? Okay, it was a prototype. And he drove it around, and he would get tickets in it.
Whoa. How are we off on this? I was asking.
Okay, well, hold on. So I thought about...
You're tangenting on me, sir.
I thought about his driving that Corvette around because cops would stop him and give him tickets even when he wasn't speeding, just so they could see the car and try to figure out what it was, because there were no Corvettes on the road. His was the only one, right? Okay, so I thought about
when
that.
When do the aliens
hold on
appear?
So I thought about my father having that vet. I figured, well, if I want to see the aliens come back after the first encounter, they'll probably arrive and to see the space shuttle launch, right? So I figured, well, how do I get on the base to see the aliens on the base? Well, I should go get a vehicle that will attract attention, just like my father did with the vet. Okay, that was a thought.
Now I'm following you. Now I'm following you.
Okay, so I went and bought a Virago 750 V-twin bike. It was one of the first ones ever put on the road. And I drove it down to Cape Canaveral, and I sat on the beach next to Cape Canaveral, across from Cape Canaveral. It's, I forgot the name of the beach, but, I sat on that beach, and I knew that if I took that motorcycle and sat it on that beach, that somebody would walk over and start talking to me that had a pass to get on the base, so I could get on the base to see the aliens who were going to come and watch the first shuttle launch, right? So that's what happened. I got on the beach with the Virago 750 V-twin, parked it on the beach, and sat there and waited for a guy to walk over and start talking to me about my cool new motorcycle. And he said to me, "Where are you going to see the space shuttle launch from?" And I said, "I have no idea." And he said, "I've got a pass. Why don't we go on base?" That's how I got on base, just like I planned. And so I followed him. We parked outside the gate on the base. I got in the station wagon with him and the German kid that I'm talking about on this page, and his other three kids, or his only three kids. They were in the car. His three kids, him and the German kid who I just mentioned, are all in the station wagon with me, and we're drive through the gate and onto the base, and the rest of it is a lot more of the story, but we don't need to get into all that. But we do.
You got into the base.
We do. Hold on, let me finish. We'll go. So I tell them the story, right? It takes like an hour to tell if I told you my first close encounter, which was a very, very long encounter, if I tell you that story, it takes like an hour to tell that story, right? So I tell them.
Well, let's add an hour to the show.
Well, I tell them.
All right, we won't stop. Go ahead.
So I tell them the story, right? I tell them the whole story, right, of the first encounter 6 months earlier, right? And almost to the day, 6 months earlier, I tell them that whole story from start to finish. And it takes like an hour. But when we're going on base, we're going like 5 miles an hour or 10, we're barely moving, right? The cars are like 20 foot from each other, and we're going at a snail's pace in the pitch darkness at 5 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning, and the sun hasn't even begun to come up. And I start telling them this story about my first encounter 6 months earlier, right? So I go through the whole story, and I get all the way to the end of the story. And then when I spit out that last word, then the German kid laughs at me like he doesn't believe the story. So in my head, I'm like, God, I wish I'm embarrassed because the guy's laughing at me, right? And so I say in my head, God, I wish you would show them what I saw. Guess what? I got my wish. 2 seconds later, there's a craft in front of the car looking just like the first one, exactly like the first one.
Oh yeah.
Okay, it's a black hole. It's a black hole with 8 equidistant lights around on the edge, and nothing more or less. And the only difference between the first encounter and that one is that the first one was vibrating like a piece on a lathe that's off center, and the one I'm seeing now is not vibrating. Okay, that's the only difference between the two. Otherwise, they're identical. Okay, and so we start moving towards this thing. It's like way out in front of the car.
What did you say? What'd you do?
Well, first of all, the German kid says maybe that, just like
maybe it's like that one.
he says maybe that's what he saw, exactly quoted in the text of the website at the top of that web page. Maybe that's what he saw. That's what he says. Maybe that's what he saw. And the guy driving, the father of the kids, says, yeah, maybe that is what he saw. And or yes, maybe something.
Okay.
Exactly what he says. But
had a red beard. I'm seeing this right.
Did the man have a red beard?
Red beard, no white beard, no Santa Claus. Okay, so anyway, we start moving towards this thing, right? And it's just sitting in the middle of the road above, it's like literally maybe 40 or 50 foot above the road. And I could have gotten out of the car and thrown a rock and hitting this thing. It was that low. Okay. And so but it's kind of small when we first see it because it's way out in the front of the road, in the middle of the road, way out in front of us. We're not that close to it yet.
It was like a black hole kind of with 8
equidistant lights edge.
Was it like a solid craft? Like, did it look like something you could touch?
It looked like an actual black hole. I mean, there was nothing there except darkness. It's like a cloud, a black cloud. It's darker than the night sky.
That's kind of, so you couldn't really touch it or anything. It's just like right there. It's like a dark cloud almost. Let
me digress a moment. Okay, so I'm going to take you back to my first encounter. Okay, when I first saw what looked like the same craft on October 3rd, 1980, just like it says at the top of my website, October 3rd, 1980. That was the first encounter 6 months earlier. This was April 13th, the day before my birthday, the day of the launch of the shuttle, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so back on October 3rd, 1980, I'm sitting in my car and in my mother's driveway at Clay and Gessner, where that building blew up like a week ago. And so in the top of my head, all I see is a ring of lights. I'm contemplating suicide at the moment, actually. And I see in the top of my head, or actually in the middle of my head, I see an image of a ring of lights turning slowly. And that's it. That's all I see is a ring of lights turning very slowly. But it's only visible for like maybe a quarter of a second or maybe a 16th of a second, a very, very short amount of time. It's visible just long enough for me to see movement, right? So I see the ring and I see its movement, and then it disappears. And it does it 3 or 4 times. It comes back on again and goes off again and comes back on again and goes off again. And it does that like 3 or 4 times. And I'm thinking, what was that? I don't think, oh, that's a UFO. I'm not thinking about UFOs, and I don't even think that's a UFO. To me, it's just a circle of lights in my head, you know? And so I'm like, what was that? What was that? And after
no shit. Oh, you know how many times in my life I've said that to myself? Like, what was that? So I'm not the only one. You know, it feels really good to hear this from somebody else, sir. Because sure. I've told a lot of stories that people don't believe, and you seem to be a very credible person, credible person. Yes. With your history of your your careers and everything you've done. So, hearing it from someone like you really makes me feel better. I gotta say.
Well, thank you. So let me go a little bit further. So, I'm not going to take you through the whole thing because it just takes too long. I mean, it's like an hour. It really does take an hour. But, so anyway, after I keep thinking, I'm like, what is that? And then after a moment or two, I stop thinking about it. And I go back to thinking about, why the hell am I here, on Earth? What's the point? Why don't I just leave? Because I was thinking about suicide before it appeared, right? And that's why it appeared. They came because I was ready to leave. You see? Okay, but I wasn't ready to leave with them. I was just ready to leave, period. Okay, so That's why they came. So, and so after a while, it took me a really long time, but eventually I opened the door, and it took me like 20 or 30 minutes just to get out of the car. But eventually I got out of the car, and I opened the door, where it has that point where it stays open. Got out, and I eventually turned around, looked up, and this guy, and the craft that I just described that was on base is sitting there in the sky, spinning very, very slowly. And vibrating like a piece on a lathe off center, and it's kind of far out away from me. It's like the size of my thumb, and so, you know, I don't want to take you through the whole story. It really is really long, but eventually I follow it out in this field, and then I come back, and, you know, there's a lot to it. You know, it takes quite a while to tell the story, but I'm going to go back now to the second encounter. So, we're on base. We're heading towards this thing. It looks like the one I just told you. You know, both of them look the same. The first one was vibrating. The second one is not vibrating. It's spinning at the same speed, very slowly, from left to right, and we're moving at it, right? And so we go. We're on a causeway road. So if I would have got out of the car and looked in the water, I'd probably gotten eaten by an alligator or crocodile, because they're infested and all the water's around this causeway road. It's just a causeway road going through a swamp, right? And so we're going around this causeway road, and eventually we go under this thing. But I have to actually back up because I'm skipping details. So before this thing appears, I'm sitting next to a young girl and a young boy. The boy is, I think he was older than the girl, and the youngest. So the boy's the oldest, and then his sister is younger, and then the young boy is behind us in the part of the station wagon where there's nothing to sit on, where you put your luggage. Okay, he's the littlest kid is in the back, right? And so they're all looking around, checking everything out. But the moment this thing appears, it's like somebody shot these kids with a freeze ray, and they're just like sitting there staring. Their eyes are not moving. They're not blinking. They're like totally frozen, like dead frozen, like Captain, like Mr. Freeze from Batman froze them, you know. And so somebody had turned off their brains, basically. And so, but the people, the German kid in the front passenger seat says, yeah, maybe that's what he saw, and the driver says, yeah, maybe that may be right, or something like that. And then at that point, they no longer care about it. They're no longer checking it out. They don't look up and go, oh, check this out. They have no desire or no care for this thing. It's like it no longer exists. Okay, they're just going about their business, right? Okay, so we go under this thing. I'm the only one in the car paying any attention to this object. And I take my head and I stick the top of my head against the glass on the side of the car. And the glass is like curved out, right? So I can actually see straight up from inside the car without having my head outside of the car. And I can see the edge of the craft turning from inside the car with my head pushed up against the top of my head pushed up against the glass. I can see it turning, right, slowly spinning, right? And we go past it, underneath it, and I look back, and it's behind us, and we keep driving, and I keep looking at it, and I keep looking at the people in the car, the kids frozen, and the parent and the adults going about their business like it never existed, and not frozen, but not looking back at it. And I look around the cars, and nobody stops. Everybody keeps driving under it like it doesn't exist. And then we get to a point, and we get to a point where it the trees block it out where I can't see it anymore. So that's the end of that story.
Did they wake up?
No, it wasn't a dream.
No, the kids that were watching.
The kids. Oh yeah, they became unfrozen after it was gone.
Do you still know them today?
No, I don't keep up with them.
So I've got this friend that believes that all these things are all like demonic, right? So UFOs are demonic, and all of it's all demonic. It all has to go to demonic attachments. So that's what
do you say about
his
that?
conclusion is, that it all comes down to demonic attachments. and how to get rid of them.
Let's go there.
So if you see UFOs, that means you have a demonic attachment. Basically, is what he's saying.
Let's go there. Okay, so there are. Shakuntala Modi is a psychiatrist who wrote a book called Remarkable Healings. How one's mental health care professional discovered something. I don't remember how the subtitle, but it's called Remarkable Healings. So she's a psychiatrist, and she works with people with attaching spirits, and she's all into demons, right? Okay, so on the other end of the scale, you have let's go to my website because it's on there.
Yeah, I'm right there.
Okay, so go to
that's where I got
on the left side. On the left side, go down to the word demon and demons and attachments. So click on that.
Okay.
Okay, so you're on the primary malevolent spirit removal resources page.
Exactly.
Okay. So at the top of the page, you'll see on the left side the word radio, and just below that you see the word. You see the.
Wait a minute. Symptoms of possession. Maybe I'm not on the.
No, not the far left. The center left. The left of the center piece of the.
Gosh.
Okay, so you have the far left of that page. You have advice, archons, articles, and news and stuff like that on there. But in the center,
I'm on the other page. That's.
Go back to the primary page.
I'm not on the primary page.
Just go back to the primary page.
Primary page, okay.
Okay, now go down to the word. It's an alphabetical order, A to Z. Go down to the word, to the D's, and click on demons and attachments.
Oh, gosh. Everyone else have to do this. I don't have good eyes, and my screen, demonic. Here we are.
You can bump it up. You know how to bump it up, right? You hold your control key down and you scroll.
The screen I'm looking at actually has a problem with it. So.
Bump it up.
So just describe it to us, sir. For everyone that can't get, just imagine that nobody can get on it.
Yeah. I got it. So go to profoundstates.com, scroll down to the word demons and attachments, click on that. You'll be at my primary malevolent spirit removal resources page. At the top of that, on the center section, on the far left of the center section, you see the word radio. Below that, you see another link called Dr. Carl Wickland and the Wimshurst Machine. You can click on that, or actually, you don't have to click on that, but you could click on that, or you could scroll down. Now, actually, you don't even have to scroll down. You just look down, and below that, you'll see in green lettering, Edgar Cayce and the Violet Ray. Below that, featured videos, and below that, featured books, and below that, you'll see Return from Tomorrow. And Return from Tomorrow is a book written by George Ritchie, in which he had a being of light come to him and took him on a journey that was like the Scrooge experience. He went to the past, the present, and the future. And then one of those during that experience, that's detailed in his life in the book Return from Tomorrow, he's taken by this being of light into a bar. And in the bar, you have patrons that are drinking at the bar, and he sees on the back of the patrons attaching spirits. They're humans who like to get drunk when they were alive. They're not demons, they're humans, right? And they like to getting drunk when they're alive, and after they're dead, they still want to get drunk. So they go into bars and they attach to humans so they can continue having the experience of being drunk after they're dead. Okay, so those are not demons, right? Okay, so then down below the link, Return from Tomorrow, about his book, you see the two books written by Dr. Carl Wickland, who used a Wimshurst machine. So the Wimshurst machine is an electrostatic device. It's like Tesla's coil. Tesla's coil would get up to like 1,000,000 volts, but he could touch it because it was extremely low amperage. If you have very high voltage, but you have very low amperage,
it gives you an instant hard-on, I believe.
Actually, you don't feel it at all, but or you might feel some very minor tingling. But so the Wimshurst machine is a device that you turn a crank, and it has a big wheel, and this wheel has metal strips on it, and it has leads touching the metal strips, and the leads go off the metal strips, and they'll touch another metal